Welcome to everyone. And um, as I was just telling my fellow board member Chuck Joy, um, he sort of said, "Let's do a poetry reading." And I thought about it. And I said, "Yeah, let's." And there's other board members here who could be here, but it's right now. And I'm going to ask people if you're in gallery view to lift your hand so people can see. So Chuck Joy, could you just say hello? Sasha Guzman, Janet
Hello,
Child.
everybody.
Uh-huh. Janet, could you lift and Geoff Oelsner. Where's Geoff? Is he here? Oh, there he is. And so, the work of the Institute is our mission statement, the sentence is to awaken soulfulness in the human voice. And our work has many dimensions, and I'm not here to sort of go through all of those with you, but we have a training program, but then we also fund what we call poetry partners. And those are people who bring poetry to a whole range of people with a whole range of needs. And it was the Institute for Poetic Medicine was founded in 2005. And I couldn't be more grateful to have found this calling quite a long time ago, and to see it develop in such unexpected, generative, and healing ways. If you're familiar with my work, you'll know that I often ask people, almost always, to read a poem twice. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. We've given each of us 12 or so minutes to read. But so I would just say, and this isn't like a class where you have to do this, but if something really speaks to you, maybe make a note to yourself. So when we get at the end, you have that note to reflect on so we can hear comments. And so often, people just want to take it inside and be sort of quiet with what's moved them. But in this case, I would say if something really speaks to you, I think it would be wonderful for us to share that as a creative community. And again, I'm here and I see people that stretch back again in my life 30 years. And so, I could say, hi, Sarah Moylan, how are you? But I can't do that to everybody. So, we're going to start. And I'm going to invite Geoff Oelsner to be our first reader and poet, speaker, and singer. So, and here's one last comment. I would, in the views section, in the upper right, I would put yourself, or if you want to, put you on speaker view so Geoff, fills up that large speaker window.
Here I am. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Okay, well, the song I'm going to do for you actually is in a book I wrote. And what's a song doing in a book? The book features MP3s. It's an ebook, and it's on my website, and it's called Attunements for the Earth. And normally I do this with the guitar, but we've had a little bit of a technological audio mystery here, so I'm going to do it a cappella. I visited the Hill of Tara in Ireland in 2005, and I've been working on this song ever since. It's been inhabited since the Stone Age, and it's the seat of the high Celtic queens and kings of the country. The goddess Maeve was, and in fact is, worshipped there. I experienced something of the place and what it holds, and I would say what holds it. Through a little girl I saw with new eyes. The veil lifted for a moment. I finally, or suddenly, found myself in Maeve's domain through the radiance of this little girl. The song has a a singable chorus, and since you're on mute, when we get to it, you can sing it silently with me, and see if you recognize the William Butler Yeats line from his poem Crazy Jane on God that I paraphrase in the chorus in the refrain. Winter hymn at Tara. Winter silence on the land, heedless of cold I go, here and there in wind, on the royal hill of Tara, honoring the goddess in abidance with the age-long stream of pilgrims and the ancient bones of Irish queens and kings. All things remain in her, all things remain in her. Came here by a narrow way, steering through the fields below in a sweeping wind, to the center of the Celtic compass, encompassing the countryside in view in all directions, and the winding lines of ancient woods and stone. All things remain in her, all things remain in her. Storms from the Atlantic Sea lash the cliffs and wash the hills and green the land. Peace keeps its hold here on these hills where the sky remembers cliffs where the winnowing winds have been. All things remain in her, all things remain in her. Clearest eyes I saw today, I was beheaded by her sudden light before I met her maiden face. Passing fast on the steep footpath, curving through the snowfall and the glow below the virgin snow on the ritual hill. All things remain in her, all things remain in her. Weft of winter on the land, heaved of snow I go in a weaving wind. Dusk embraces silence, summoning faint traces of the prayers and cheers and ancient chants of the lives within. All things remain in her, all things remain in her, all things remain in her, all things remain in her. And I'll follow that rather wintry poem. It's been cold here. Maybe that's why there's these wintry choices. But one more that was written right at that difficult, super bummer moment in 2016 when the election results were announced. And I wrote this for my wife at that time. It's called Well Held. And it really does have to do with the way in which we can go to nature to find sanctuary and peace. Well held. Longing for darkness alone, she retires her candle, going undercover. To think back on a walk she took in the cold gray before dawn, finding hoof prints set in freshly fallen snow. Along a trail they laid, across the steep hillside in the woods behind their home. Now night winds heave the forest slopes. She hears the hills that hold her in their sweep, well held in living darkness. Her longing becomes belonging. We move a little closer to the plant world here in spring. Many of us have trees that have been stations of connection and peace for us. Growing up, sometimes I'd go there and grab a branch and I'd find it consistently grounding. Oak angel, tree at our window, presiding oak, you stand before me, a branching of brown roads, and tell me my roots cannot fail thirst, for in the earth our life is. Old angel, you were singing in the crush of day, as you are now in the rose church of twilight. But only now I hear, while we sleep, you walk the deep world breezes, night's cool hand on the brow of our city. And one more. It's a poem of attunement. Again, these are all in this book, Attunements for the Earth. And I don't think this book could have been written without IPM and the poetry of nature to inspire me with the first section of the book, which are letters that were actually written to the poets of the Poetry of Nature group that Nanlia and I do for IPM. This is called Guardians, and thank you for listening. As we drove towards Council Grove, Flint Hills of Kansas, friends, I thought, seeing darkness deep in a morning window, living there is one who caved into himself at night, becomes winds, rivering through cottonwoods across Kansas, nameless guardian of stream banks and gullies. And later, as we turned into Waukene, I felt brush past me hints of one who holds the entire sway of grasses on this plain, prayers appearing in their sheen, open in her mind as she sits in a porch swing somewhere near the trembling of roads. We headed west through crosswinds past wheat's gold inscriptions, spying traces in that tall afternoon of one who wheels across cumulus on wings of red-tailed hawks, scattering visions like rain on the earth below. From a distant farmhouse, walled in a windbreak, broodings rose up at twilight of one who wears the wet weave of her own veins, gently siphoning life into their outstretched branches. So on the unsheltered plain, each soul that wakens in its cradle of flesh aligns with space and is drawn out into the guardianship of what it loves most deeply. Thank you.
Thank you, Geoff. I call this reading an act of human magic, and that's what I mean. Your sharing is what I mean. I'm going to turn towards Janet Childs. Janet was an original board member of IPM in 2005, and we've known each other since 2001. Janet?
It is such an honor to be here and to be a part of IPM, which has been an inspiration for me. I've been kind of a homegrown songwriter, very much following in the footsteps of Geoff. And IPM has just given me more permission to be that more fully. And I can't say how much I am touched by what IPM has done and what it has brought to me and to my life and to the life of people that I'm able to work with. Poetic medicine has been the transformative catalyst for so much. And so I light this candle for all of you in the audience, for all of you that are gathered in this circle together, as a reminder that you are that light in our world, and that by bearing witness and by listening, and also by sharing the words of your heart. And I want to thank John for making this all possible, for this moment to happen. You are that light. And I'm going to dedicate a song to you. And this is to each and every one of you. Gentle and deep strong and true. This landscape of the soul is you, forever reaching into the heart. You bring the river of healing, it is your art. And as you slowly unfold your phoenix wings and reach for the stars and the roots of your ancestry, and as you touch the open sky, you step out and you fly, 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 fly. Oh, my friend, you are here in the effervescence of your soul. You call us forth to be all we can be. You mend us completely. You help us to be whole. Landing on the footprints of compassion's shore, you show us the way. We fear it no more. You reach out your hand and say, let me cradle you, the little child and the wise ones we knew. Gentle and deep, strong and true, this landscape of the soul is you, oh my friend, is you. Oh, it is you. Take wings and fly to your creativity. Your authentic destiny is right here in the arms of your community. We love you, my friend. We love you, my friend. Take wings and fly to your creativity. Your authentic destiny is right here in the arms of your community. We love you, my friends. We honor you, my friends. We love you. Thank you. And I could feel our circle all around. You were lifting me up to sing that, so thank you. And when I thought about coming today, to be a part of this amazing circle. I thought I wanted to read a poem called Gratitude. And so this is Gratitude. It is a warmth spreading up in the dance of my chest, my lips, my eyes. I am so grateful for small, unseen acts of help, of kindness, of presence. In these times, it is a balm of connected comfort, of unity, of recognizing together this moment. When I speak gratitude, 1,000 lanterns glow, and I am warmed by that steady guide. When I receive it, the thank you, it is as flowers tumbling out of the mouth of the giver, cascading down the trunk of my body, soft petals, a river of gentle song, bringing me back here to this present land, to my reason on the earth, my gift. So here is another song I am dedicating to you, and I'm wanting to watch my time. Do I have time for one more?
How's our time, Mary?
4 minutes,
Oh,
give or take.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to read, and then I'll end with a quick song. This is called Quavering River Light, and I live next to a wonderful Coyote Creek, right in back of my mobile home park. So this is dedicated to that. Egret stands perfectly still in shallow water. Ring-necked dove calls out, deep bass and gentle treble coo. I am surrounded by reminders, echoing back, settling me home in this body, in this time. Heart curling, enfolding the wounded moment, the reverse osmosis of the chrysalis, returning to the womb of this first aware breath. There is so much sorrow at the crest of the waterfall. Let the tears rush over. The song cry, proclaimed, let it out. The world deserves your tears and your generous love. As the sunset passions dips into the tranquility of twilight, look for that crimson into blue moment. Let its peace blanket. Be quiet. Know the earth in its brownness will return you. Feel your intentions. Pivot to your true north. May the stars in your eyes radiate to this center, the home of your heart. All you give is this, and it is enough for now. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to leave you with this. Rising from the ashes, we're building a new day. Angels rising from the ashes, loving each other in a new way. Well, we are the hope, we are the healing, we are the unity, we are the peace. We are the hope, we are the healing, we are the unity, we are the peace. Angels rising from the ashes, building a new day. We are angels rising from the ashes, loving each other in a new way. Yes, loving each other in a new way. Woo! Loving each other in a new way. Yep.
The song cry, crimson in blue, pivot. Janet, thank you so much. Thank you for lifting me over all these years and giving us an opportunity to get in this beautiful current. So I'm going to turn towards Chuck Joy. And I'm going to say that Nanlia Mick, who with Geoff leads the Poetry of Nature, she has this phrase called neck of the woods. And so Chuck Joy is in where I grew up, is in my neck of the woods, a rather large one, because he is in Erie, PA, and I grew up in Cleveland. But I consider we always went through Erie going to my grandfather's in Ellicottville. So I very much think of Erie as being in my neck of the woods, and my brother and friend Chuck Joy is, on that path. So, and it was Chuck actually when he's come out with a new book of poetry called Vinyl, and he sort of sparked this idea of putting this poetry reading together. So, Chuck, take it away.
Thank you, John. And you're welcome in Erie whenever it fits your travel plans. I'm very excited to be here, lending my voice to the chorus for Poetic Medicine. And I would like to read 3 poems tonight, 2 of them from this collection. This is kind of what it looks like. I don't know what you can see. It's not coming through very well here because of the blurring. But anyway, it's a colorful cover. And this is a great opportunity for me to look at the poems in this collection through the lens of poetry therapy. And I was very pleased to find that without a lot of effort, there's at least 2 poems in here I'd like to share along those lines. And then I'll conclude with a 3rd poem that's new. I had an experience that was very powerful. It could have been worse, but it was a lot. And this poem may actually be part of the ongoing trauma, although I'm offering it as evidence of poetry therapy. It's like I was pushed into the poem, and it surprised me, and it turned out to be ekphrastic, and ekphrastic with a film, no less. So here it goes. It's called Dr. Rick's Cafe Americaine. A 19th hole, the big hospital across the street. Dr. Rick always wearing the white jacket. Most doctors, and there were a few, they left their white jackets back in their lockers. Dr. Louie at the bar near Sam's piano, nursing a gin fizz. Nursing, his hearing that word brought a thin smile. Suddenly, of all the bars in all the cities of the Great Lakes region, enters a woman Dr. Louie knew as Mrs. Laszlo, a patient, a beautiful woman who glowed so brilliantly She made the world around her seem to be in black and white. The enchanting woman walked right up to Dr. Louis. He rose to greet her, happy to see her. His last treatment, exactly what she'd asked for. This patient would be so pleased. Instead, she spoke with anger. "You're a fraud," she accused, pointing her chin toward his, her eyes glittering with rage. "You're the elephant in the room." Dr. Louis appeared stunned. Not like in the movie Casablanca, genuinely stunned. He collapsed back against his bar stool, managing a sincere, if staccato, reply, backed by the full faith and confidence of medical science. "I'm shocked, shocked." Thank you. Not like the movie Casablanca. So this next poem from the collection Vinyl, that truly is a evidence of poetry therapy. I was having an experience from time to time and with various people, and I was bothered by this and looking for help on how to manage. And I took it to poetry, and the result is this poem. Where I go when you talk so long. An interior, but somehow tropical. 2 walls wide open, only roof, bamboo poles and drooping thatch. I hear you through the open walls, your voice a sort of instrumental. I monitor, maintaining the sense of it, while at the same time studying a collection of miniature artworks, colorful rectangles and squares precisely arranged on one real wall, that wall painted a light shade of raspberry. Seated and standing around the room, dressed like islanders sipping orange drinks, a fine sample of encouraging supporters. St. Francis, Harry Stack Sullivan, William Carlos Williams, Eleanor Roosevelt, all also listening. Sometimes my line comes to me soon after you start speaking, and it's still good when you conclude. Thank you. I don't read that poem very often, but this seemed like a safe space. So thank you for listening. Now I'm going to conclude with a new poem, and I think this will bring this to a grand conclusion. I went to poetry therapy intentionally. Actually, what happened was I was looking for an idea for a poem. I was ready to write and I needed an idea, and I attended to the present moment. And I realized within a very short period of time, I was pretty upset. So I knew that would be therapy to write that poem. And here it is. It's called Frustration. As mood is to climate and emotions to weather, frustration is a sudden storm, sometimes entirely predicted, sometimes predicted for a week. A rush of black war clouds trailing gray screens of rain, the lake we're sailing kicking up, frothy lines of angry waves, bare teeth, the strongest overtopping the gunwale, our open boat at risk to be upsot. You're in the back managing the tiller. I'm up front tying down a line. Wind roaring, we're shouting back and forth. Our groaning hull slapping every wave harder, splattering sheets of cold spray. I can't get enough. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm so pleased to be here and looking forward to hearing
Chuck,
the rest of the show.
Chuck, thank you so much. I mean, as I said, usually I have people read poems twice. And so if I were going to have that be a poem, I'd have, you know, let us hear it again.
Oh,
But also, I wanted to say that I didn't say that in Chuck's neck of the woods, he was Poet Laureate of Erie County for a number of years.
Pennsylvania.
Erie County, Pennsylvania. And, you know, he's, as a child psychiatrist, I'm particularly glad that he also puts his foot deep into poetry. So, so Chuck, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So now I'm going to turn to Sasha Guzman. And I haven't, in the flyer that Valerie Knight beautifully designed for this, we had little very short bios for people. So far I haven't read them, but I want to introduce Sasha, and she is the newest board member of the Institute for Poetic Medicine. And I met her via a dear friend of both of ours, who has recently, and to our grieving hearts, passed too soon, a wonderful man named Dr. Jim Brandenburg. And so I met Sasha through Jim, and just in speaking with her, I realized how she had been part of his life and his poetry work for 10 years, and that I would be lucky if she would agree to be on our board. And so I was lucky. And Sasha works with at-risk youth and parents and children in San Antonio, Texas, and is a member of the TAP Pilum. How do you say that word, Sasha? TAP Pilum.
Tapilam Gotekin Nation.
And jingle dances at the local powwows. She co-facilitates the Exile of Poetry group, which Jim used to lead, Dr. Brandenburg, of which she has been a member for the past 10 years. So, Sasha, I welcome you to bring your poems to us in your voice.
Thank you so much, John, for your kind words, for welcoming me, and for accepting me, that I can continue even after our dear friend Jim is no longer with us, that I can continue to be a part of the community. John, I met you years ago, and also Janet. So it's meant a lot to be able to stay in the circle and to continue the good work. And so I chose some poems that were pretty lighthearted. I'm very focused on Jungian psychology, as was Jim Brandenburg. You know that, Janet, yes, and John. So I chose one at the end that is a little bit focused on that, but I wanted to focus. We said that this was about the spoken word and about connecting with each other, and kind of, even though we're doing this over Zoom, disconnecting from technology. And so I have some that are also focused on connecting. So the first one is called mindfulness. Mindfulness is really big right now and is very useful. And I said, this is going to be a good idea. So I hope you like it. So mindfulness. Once I was running and my feet started moving on their own, I stopped thinking and felt an absence of anything, but it was a good nothing. I smelled the trees and car exhaust, the acorns hurting under my feet, my ligaments straining, but I felt at the same time great, liberated and free of all worry and obligation. No one to worry about or impress, or to be conscious of. Just me and nature and the absence of time. I should do it again. So I'm a pretty avid runner. And I said, oh, this is something that I think we'll enjoy. And so now this next poem is called Disconnect to Connect. And it's about our connection and technology. Do the little things that give you peace. Connect with your ancestors and disconnect from the media. Feel the sun. Don't look at it artificially on a television. Rise and set. Don't look at it, tomorrow, remember yesterday. The way lived, not the way watched. Why do the little things? Because they are human and they give peace and life. Disconnect for a time, then turn it back on. It will be there in a minute, in an hour, in a day. When the time of life sets, remember it, and not the television sets or phones.
Sasha, will
Yes.
you read that one again to us? I think
Sure.
we will be. It's like a talk about poetic medicine. I think it's a little bit of medicine for us.
Okay. Yes, sir. John, I know you don't like it when I call you sir. Disconnect to connect. Do the little things that give you peace. Connect with your ancestors and disconnect from the media. Feel the sun. Don't look at it artificially on a television. Rise and set. Tomorrow, remember yesterday. The way lived, not the way watched. Why do the little things? Because they are human and they give peace and life. Disconnect for a time, then turn it back on. It will be there in a minute, in an hour, in a day. When the time of life sets, remember it, and not the television sets or phones. So in this age of so much technology, in my stop share. In this age of so much technology, I said, well, I'm also addicted to my phone, but it's good to disconnect as well. I love being outside. And so this next one is a little bit of humor. It's called Without Poetry. They say something, but say nothing. All the right words that should elicit magic yield dead air. The crowd does not go wild, have an illumination or insight, but something more bland that leaves the audience with nothing to say about it. He waits for a response and pats himself on the back. On the weekend, he goes to church with his wife and kisses his kids like a true well-to-do. But there's something missing, not something that can be pointed out, but a lack of soul, a lack of poetry. It's a little dark humor, but
Oh, that's nice.
so I have had a lot of poems published in Voices de la Luna with Dr. James Brandenburg. And so this next one is one from November 2022, Voices de la Luna. And it's called Together We Walk. We are all tired, run down and exhausted. The heat of the day beats down, and we are here come what may. May we be together in grief, together in life, together in songs. If we are not alone, life is more bearable. Although my grief may be a person or wearable like clothing, that it has become this real, we are a circle, connected. Come what may we be together. And I want to be mindful of time. I have a few more. So I'm very focused on dreams with analytical psychology. A lot of dream interpretation happens in that kind of therapy. I'm in school to be a marriage, couple, and family therapist, and so I'm biased in my opinion. But this is called Visiting Dreams. I sleep peacefully when the wants of the world are not running through my mind. Mental images of what I forgot to do not plague my serenity. The glare of artificial light from devices don't trick me back into wakefulness. My drive to do things is consciously paused, and I visit another world somehow merged with this world called dreams. It's the unconscious turn to work, sending me a message that I should slow down. When I lay my head down, I wish to lay down truly peacefully and truly aware of my rest. That is the best rest. And so my final one, this one is called Anima, and it's from the February 2022 Voices de la Luna magazine. And so the anima and animus are the soul aspects of ourselves, and there are opposite psychological selves. So for a man, you would have the anima, and for a woman, her opposite would be the animus. And yes, Janet also knows about this area of Jungian psychology, which was so dear to Dr. Brandenburg. And so, yes, it's called anima, and the symbolism is of a fox. So a fox is a feminine symbol, a feminine archetype, and it represents, in this case, the anima. So it says, follow the fox down, fortunately fixated forth. It is a guide gilded with light red fur, fire and flames, the light bringer. An anima animated in symbolism. It dances and dares to develop paths to pursue. Dangerously dark and blindingly light, it will reveal your soul and your ignorance. It talks and tells riddles in the sand. Find it and be challenged. Willfully learn its ways. So that one sounds a little bit abstract, but
It's so
your soul-
vivid. It's so vivid, Sasha.
thank you.
Here, we have time. Can I'm giving you would you read it again to us?
Sure, yes.
I mean, do people feel that I said it's so vivid? Raise your thumbs if you agree with me on that one. Or okay, Sasha, go ahead.
Yes. So anima, follow the fox down, fortunately fixated on its journey forth. It is a guide gilded with light red fur, fire and flames, the light bringer. An anima animated in symbolism. It dances and dares to develop paths to pursue. Dangerously dark and blindingly light, it will reveal your soul and your ignorance. It talks and tells riddles in the sand. Find it and be challenged. Willfully learn its ways. So the feminine aspect of ourselves, or the masculine aspects of ourselves, in this case, the fox is considered a trickster. Sometimes we see in fables or fairy tales, the fox is also the trickster. So in our psychological selves, in that opposite part of ourselves that give us the true feeling of belonging, of being on the right path of our soul, those things that are sometimes hard to arrive at, and if we're not in sync with it, it can kind of act as a trickster for us and send us down like a rabbit hole. So thank you so much for listening to me. I really enjoyed reading and sharing.
And we enjoyed listening. And Geoff, Janet, Chuck, and Sasha, so glad I am to be on this journey with you as we, have our own sort of paths and voices, and yet, we're joined in growing the work of the Institute for Poetic Medicine. So I'll read some poems now. I fell in love with writing when I was 13, and I'm writing a poem about a girl skating at Thornton Park in Shaker Heights, Ohio. And I just love the idea of trying to write down on the page words that could show you this experience. And I've never, from that moment, have never really left it's never stopped. So this first poem is called Comfort. Can you hear me okay? Comfort. Comfort doesn't need to make a name for itself. Yet it has a place and knows that, like a rake knows the side of a shed or a shawl shoulders. Because comfort knows itself, it does not deny its life, is not shy, will not hurry to speak or try to attract attention. But watch closely Notice how comfort breathes more deeply than anything else, opens up room for you, unwraps a long pause around you as if it is a gift you deserve for no reason at all. Comfort shows you how the moment does not just pass, but lives, like a pair of hands that cradle the back of your head and neck, sensitive that you, the weight of you at rest in someone else's palms, is like nothing else in the universe. And breathing again, looks down, smiles, cares.
Amazing, John. Looks down, smiles, cares. It's like you wove a blanket of comfort around us.
Well, this poem is called There is a Vulnerability. There is a vulnerability in me. It's a door I can't lock, a window close to the place I wouldn't want you to see, and it's already wide open. As if God is a thief who cased the house long ago and removed all the locks, who wants to steal the world from my heart and leave me with nothing. And nothing is a word far away from the true moment of nothing. I have stayed so busy pretending I'm safe that when I experience the raw impact of surprise and fear, when I find myself naked, loss, beauty, a truth sprung from someone else's broken heart, a truth sprung from someone else's broken heart, all these break my own. And what's left? I want to leave my imagined safety, step outside, ask you to sit down with me on the curb. I want to leave my imagined safety, step outside, ask you to sit down with me on the curb so we can talk. Let silence find us. Having done this work all these years, there's that moment. I won't even give it an adjective. There's that moment when someone just meets a line in a poem and they respond, or the whole poem or something. And I have been, that's really poetic medicine, just an abstraction for that actual experience of when a poem meets you. Consider what happens. Consider what happens upon hearing a poem that moves you. The nod of your head, tucking your chin close to your chest as if stopping to rest, as if you could cry now in the middle of a long journey. As if you could cry now in the middle of a long journey. Hear whatever you regret having forgotten, even with your aching tiredness, which you cannot forget, all of a sudden turns to a surprisingly vibrant sky as your eyes widen ever so slightly in a recognition that shimmers under your skin, wells up into a calm line of sight that is your own and goes on almost forever. Astonished, You walk outside breathing and slowly stroll in the fresh air, suddenly aware that back in your house, someone new, a stranger you like, has arrived. Often in poetry, poetic medicine workshops or poetry therapy will give a line, just a line, a prompt for a person to take and write from that prompt. So I was doing that to myself, and there's a line from a poem by Joy Harjo, former poet laureate of the United States. And the line was, "What shall I do with all of this heartache? What shall I do with all of this heartache?" I'm not sure I need to do something. Tears spring up on their own these days, more and more, almost in their own modest way. These mysterious salted drops jump at the edge of really the deep corner of my eyes, most often the right one. Wet, wet. And it is a kind of surprise, is one of the few wholly, and I could say totally natural things that happens. No plan, nothing manufactured. Even beyond surprise, a tear steps, springs, jumps out on its own, not necessarily a rivulet down my right cheek. I'm not in a movie. I'm not in a movie. No one sees it. Yet, coming from somewhere within, this tear appears in the world and takes its space in this world of all this heartache. All right. So, how am I doing, Mary, for time? Do I have a few minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Mary?
Sorry, you have time, John.
Okay.
Yep.
So one time I was at a workshop that Janet was leading, Janet Childs, and we were sitting on the floor, and there was two people, a dyad working together, and I watched a person turn their face towards someone. I don't think there's any words at that moment, but this person just turned towards someone, and this poem sprang from that moment. Sometimes you can see when what you need to say makes its way into a place in another person where nothing is disturbed. A strong wind might come up around you both, and the smell of a storm tug hard at the edge of your thought, but still, your friend's eyes hold fast, like a small shelter in the middle of nowhere, and not too far from home. Sometimes you can see when what you need to say makes its way into a place in another person where nothing is disturbed. A strong wind might come up around you both, and the smell of a storm tug hard at the edge of your thought, but still, your friend's eyes hold fast like a small shelter in the middle of nowhere. Here's two last poems I'll read. I was a lover of jazz and Charles Mingus string bass. So this is poem is called "The Music of Mingus," inspired by the music of Charles Mingus. I am river's undercurrent. My fingers pluck at what's deep, what has feeling and no words. I'm not found in the shining cities or hearts of people on the Southern California coast. I am the sultry Mississippi, the chilly East River of New York City. I am a street late at night in Bronx or Biloxi. My presence hovers in the air. My presence hovers in the air of those streets, but streetlights do not cast my shadow. I am hard to see because I flow, because I hide myself inside you. River music, street music. You won't find starlight on my surface. I make love with those stars down in the river. This music, this pleasure, is between you and me. So, for a couple of years, I was connected with a wonderful place called the Wellness Community, a cancer support center. They had nationwide, they still have nationwide places. See, they changed their name from the Wellness Community to the Cancer Support Center. But when I was there was a couple that attended a series I gave. A lesbian couple, Blake Hurlbert and Kim Wilson. And Blake had received a terminal cancer diagnosis, but Kim and Blake attended this whole series, and they were going to have a marriage ceremony. And so up in Sacramento, which is north of me, and so they asked me if I'd write a poem for them for this marriage. And so this poem I wrote for Blake and Kim is called Making Love at Twilight. I believe lovers are made from twilight. That's when names slip away, when hearts brim and let go like flocks of small silver-feathered birds that loosen themselves in a rush from dark branches. They rise swiftly and swirl over this immense field of letting go. Something in lovers spills beautifully across the horizon, streams over cracks in their heart beyond what they know, dissolves into some loving ache as daylight begins to turn into stars. And lovers cannot name the color of that sky. It is so exquisite. What they know now, and now, is the next breath, the scent of one another, the place within that wants the other close. So I'm going to put this off of speaker view and see gallery and see all of us gathered here. So I sort of did it a few moments ago, but I want to thank Chuck and Janet and Sasha and Geoff for their reading and participation. And, you know, if we didn't have listeners, we'd still be poets, you know, they'd be, but we've had the good fortune to have your listening. If you're interested in finding out more about the Institute for Poetic Medicine, please write, let us know. We have a very, you know, not overdone newsletter we send out monthly. There are these programs that are happening, which if you're interested in taking part of them, you can go to the chat where Mary posted the link. And again, you know, many of you I've known for a long time, some I've never met, some I'm hoping to meet again. And I just will say thank you